Crimes against humanity are certain acts that are purposely committed as part of a widespread or systematic policy directed against civilians in times of war or peace. They differ from war crimes because they are not isolated acts committed by individual soldiers, but are acts committed in furtherance of a state policy. The first prosecution for crimes against humanity took place at the Nuremberg Trials, initially being considered for legal use widely in international law. Following the Holocaust, a global standard of human rights was articulated in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights 1948. Political groups or states that violate or incite violation of human rights norms, as found in the Declaration, are an expression of the political pathologies associated with crimes against humanity. Crimes against humanity have since been prosecuted by other international courts as well as in domestic prosecutions. The law of crimes against humanity has primarily developed through the evolution of customary international law. Crimes against humanity are not codified in an international convention, although there is currently an international effort to establish such a treaty, led by the Crimes Against Humanity Initiative. Unlike war crimes, crimes against humanity can be committed during peace or war. They are not isolated or sporadic events, but are part either of a government policy or of a wide practice of atrocities tolerated or condoned by a government or a de facto authority. War crimes, murder, massacres, dehumanization, genocide, ethnic cleansing, deportations, unethical human experimentation, extrajudicial punishments including summary executions, use of weapons of mass destruction, state terrorism or state sponsoring of terrorism, death squads, kidnappings and forced disappearances, use of child soldiers, unjust imprisonment, enslavement, torture, rape, political repression, racial discrimination, religious persecution and other human rights abuses may reach the threshold of crimes against humanity if they are part of a widespread or systematic practice. The term crimes against humanity is potentially ambiguous because of the ambiguity of the word humanity, which can mean humankind or the value of humanness. The history of the term shows that the latter sense is intended. There were several bilateral treaties in 1814 that foreshadowed the multilateral Treaty of Final Act of the Congress of Vienna that the slave trade violated the principles of humanity and justice. The Multilateral Declaration of the Powers on the Abolition of the Slave Trade of the 8th of February 1815 included in its first sentence the concept of the principles of humanity and universal morality as justification for ending a trade that was odious in its continuance. The term crimes against humanity was used by George Washington Williams in a pamphlet published in 1890 to describe the practices of Leopold II of Belgium's administration of the Congo Free State. In treaty law, the term originated in the Second Hague Convention of 1899 preamble and was expanded in the Fourth Hague Convention of 1907 preamble and their respective regulations, which were concerned with the codification of new rules of international humanitarian law. The preamble of the two conventions referenced the laws of humanity as an expression of underlying inarticulated humanistic values. The term is part of what is known as the Martens Clause. On May 24, 1915, the Allied powers, Britain, France, and Russia, jointly issued a statement explicitly charging for the first time ever another government of committing a crime against humanity. An excerpt from this joint statement reads, "In view of these new crimes of Ottoman Empire against humanity and civilization, the Allied governments announce publicly to the Sublime Porte that they will hold personally responsible for these crimes all members of the Ottoman government, as well as those of their agents who are implicated in such massacres." At the conclusion of the war, an International War Crimes Commission recommended the creation of a tribunal to try violations of the laws of humanity. However, the U.S. representative objected to references to law of humanity as being imprecise and insufficiently developed at that time, and the concept was not pursued. Nonetheless, A UN report in 1948 referred to the usage of the term, crimes against humanity, in regard to the Armenian massacres as a precedent to the Nuremberg and Tokyo Charters. On May 15, 1948, the Economic and Social Council presented a 384 pages report prepared by the United Nations War Crimes Commission and 5 of the Nuremberg and Tokyo Charters, and thereby as a precursor to the then newly adopted UN Genocide Convention, differentiating between war crimes and crimes against humanity, by referring to the information collected during World War I and put forward by the 1919 Commission of Responsibilities. The report entitled Information C.